All right, let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome to CWS as it is. I think this is your first time on this particular program.
Yes, it is. It's my first time.
Hmm. I can hardly hear you, so I'm gonna need you to use your
Oh,
stage voice.
okay, I will. Yes, this is my first time here. I've been with you before, but on this particular program, this is my first time.
Well, welcome,
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Desiree. For those of in our audience that don't know you, could you just give us maybe a one-liner of who Desiree Edghill is and what she does?
I am a mother, a grandmother, a great grandmother. I am an actress, director, producer, and I'm also HIV/AIDS educator.
That's good. Desiree, let me start with this. How does the change of government first of all, what are your thoughts and your feelings about this transition that just took place?
Well, I had felt before the change of government that it was good to have change. I always and I felt it would be a good thing if we did have a change. That's my feelings right now. I'm still looking at what is happening and evaluating. I like change. For me, change is good.
Mhm. You work and have been working for some time with HIV/AIDS. How how does this change of government affect the national AIDS program in Guyana?
Well, we won't know that as yet because they have just sworn in their new ministers and portfolios. They have not gone to that place as yet. The National AIDS Program is still being run by Dr. Shanti Singh, who's the National AIDS Program manager.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping that it would be a smooth rollover because she's really versed there. She has together we have created the proposal for the new global fund project, and she spearheaded that and has a lot of knowledge of that and HIV/AIDS in Guyana because she's been working for quite a number of years, and not only in Guyana but the Caribbean and representing Guyana further afield. So, she has a good knowledge. So even if they don't meet her, she has a lot of wealth of knowledge to pass on.
Let me try something, Desiree. I I'm getting a little bit of echo.
Oh,
Maybe it's me.
not me. Me?
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing
All
you.
right, good. I think this is much better. I just changed mics. Desiree, what is the status of the HIV/AIDS program in Guyana today?
Well, we're at a good place. We used to be years ago the second highest in the Caribbean. We're now the seventh highest, so we're at a good place. Or the virus is contained, mainly contained now in the P population, as the new population, we call them P affected population. And the people who fall in that category are men who have sex with men, commercial workers, lovers and minors, transgender, that type of people. So that's where we are now. We've got pretty good control. We did a lot of work for over 20 years. We've been working with recycling in Ghana. So we're at a good place. But we still have that issue where our concentrated in that key affected population.
You just mentioned that over 20 years this program has been implemented. What changes have you seen? What improvements have you seen over the past 8 years?
Well, over the past 8 years, we have seen a lot of people trying to find out their status. There's a lot of stigma and discrimination targeted people who even visit the testing site, even if they did not get tested. But now people are coming out to be tested. People are coming with their partners to get tested before they get married and before they have a relationship and that kind of thing. We have a lot of overseas kind of relationships. So when partners come from overseas, they want to get tested before they start any sexual relations. So we have moved places people are afraid to even visit the site. So places that are coming and bringing the partners so they can know their status before they start a relationship. So we're at a good place. We have a lot of knowledge. We're close to achieving universal access so that all persons who want treatment in Guyana can access treatment. So we're at a very good place. We have been able to down prevention of multi-child transmission program, where a program only about 2% of babies contract HIV from mothers in Ghana because the program is so successful. We would like to move to a place where no child contracts HIV from the mother. So we're working there, but we're a good place in Ghana.
What are some factors or protocols that have been put in place you believe are responsible for this improvement?
I think when we started to look at one national program, when we started doing work in Ghana, we were all in our different areas of expertise, so we thought, and working sometimes even working overlapping, where you think that you alone were working with one population, and you found that others were working in the same population. And because of that, some of the population is being left out. But when Dr. Ramsamy, former Minister of Health, started talking about one national program, it doesn't matter who you're funded by, whether it's by the government or external funder, we have to work toward one national program, a place where we know what each other is doing, and so we ensure we cover all the every part of our population. And I think when we moved there, looking at all of us reporting to the National AIDS program and having one national program, we really started moving toward a really good place in Ghana. So for me, that is what really brought about that beautiful change. We were able to target each and every member of our population with HIV messages and treatment.
How was funding? I mean, is there two sets of funding? You have government funding and global funding or international funding. What describe the funding that this program received?
Well, we first received funding from USAID earlier in the days. They started in 1999, and they started their HIV program in Ghana, HIV STI Youth Project in Ghana in 1999. And when the Global Fund came on, in 2001, the Global Fund started doing work in Ghana. And we were not accessing funding from the inception. But Dr. Ramsamy, like I said, was very strong in bargaining for Guyana. And Guyana was one of the countries in this hemisphere, was one of the first countries to receive the three major funding, which was the funding, the USAID funding, the Global Fund funding, and the World Bank funding. And so we got a lot of funding earlier to start working in HIV. And that's why we are such a good place in Ghana, because we started working long before countries in the Caribbean and Latin America. And so we're now not getting World Bank funding. That funding has gone. The USAID, which is now the PEPFAR funding, that is reducing. It has been reducing over the last 5 years. We were given notice that it would reduce, and it has been reducing, and hence the programs have been changing. And the Global Fund has still been there. They haven't done a lot of reduction, but what they have done is reprogramming. So they've changed their focus, so to speak.
You mentioned Guyana was the first or one of the countries that got all the funding or all three funding. Why do you believe? What made Guyana? What positioned Guyana to receive those funding? What do you believe was the reason for that?
Well, what was put out there is that we were the second highest in the Caribbean. I mean, second to Haiti, that's crazy. And that, we didn't have good stats at that time. We did have stats, but we didn't have good stats. And so Guyana was placed second. In my mind, and I could be wrong with this, I think now that I don't think we were ever at that place where we were second in the Caribbean. That was what was put out there. And so therefore we were a priority country. We were at a place where, hey, we got to do something with Guyana, because there are a lot of visitors that come to Ghana, and a lot of Ghanaians that travel across the world in the Caribbean. And so something needed to be done in Guyana before things get out of hand. And I think that was one of the things that I shouldn't say qualified, because you had to fight for it, you had to bargain for it, you have to prove that you needed it and that you were entitled to it. And I think that Dr. Ramsamy did a very good job of getting that done. And so we were able to receive the three major. We had other funding, but those were the three major fundings: the USAID funding, the World Bank, and the Global.
And what funding exists today?
Well, today, like I said before, we don't have the World Bank anymore. We do have the Global Fund, and we do have let's say through the PEPFAR. UNICEF is doing some HIV work, but they're working among adolescents, because the PEPFAR funding and the Global Fund funding don't see youth as a priority. I think the Global Fund is moving toward changing that a little bit, because I think youth is a priority. They're our future, and there are a lot of risky behaviors happening among our youth. But neither the Global Fund nor the PEPFAR funding are targeting youth. And so UNICEF has picked up some of the slack and are working with adolescents and including the Ministry of Education within school youth. And so those are the three courses. Although we're having some funding through UNFPA, UNDP, and UNH. Those are not major funding.
What happens if that funding dries up?
Well, one of the things they say that constant banging breaks Pearl Harbor, and you don't want people to get complacent. As long as there's no cure for HIV, we need to continue doing work, continue putting messages out there, continue telling people the risk that they're at, because things are changing as the virus continues, and as you know, only recently there was a new strain of virus found in the Caribbean, and so we have to be careful that it doesn't come our way. We have been able to control because of all the work we've been doing. We have been able to control the virus and keep with our B1, B2. We just keep that strain since we started up until now. Good for us. There are other countries like Africa that has other strains, but we have been able to keep ours. Now there's another strain in the Caribbean, and so we have to continue talking about HIV. And we have to continue telling people what are the changes that are happening and continue to let them know they have to continue protecting themselves.
Hmm. What would you like this new government to know and to do about this HIV/AIDS program?
At the moment, both the Global Fund and the PEPFAR funding are speaking about sustainability
Uh-huh.
and country ownership. The country has to own their programs. Funding is not going to be there forever. And we need to understand that very clearly. And so we have to own our projects. So that's where I'd like the government to really look at. There has been some amount of movement in that direction by the Ministry of Health. The Global Fund stipulated that it be done, and it had to be done because we had to be accountable for about 40% of the program, meaning that they're giving us 100, you got to give us 40. So they wanted the government to put their lot in. And so the government has started putting their lot in. They have done a lot of health system strengthening with the health systems that are providing HIV/AIDS services across the regions of Guyana. And so they have started putting in their lot. There's still more to be done because we have to keep putting more and more over into the government under the Ministry of Health so that if the funding stops, because remember, this funding, the PEPFAR funding is yearly. Though it might be a 3-year project, you get it yearly. The Global Fund is the same thing. It's just done a reprogram up to 2018. And so the government needs to, over the next couple of years, getting to 2080, start owning the project. And not only the government, it has to be government, civil society, and we still need some funding.
Hmm.
Uh,
You know, in it is believed that in any society, wherever there's an epidemic, regardless of what facilities you have, regardless of how much medication or medicines you have, no fight against an epidemic is successful unless the people are educated. So let's talk a bit about education. How important is national education and response on HIV/AIDS?
I think it is major. I think it is very, very important. One of the things that I had said with our previous president is that we did not hear a lot from him in terms of HIV and AIDS, in terms of making pronouncements, in terms of speaking to the people where HIV and AIDS is concerned. That was squarely laid on the lap of the Minister of Health and the program manager of the National AIDS Program, Dr. Shanti, along with the other civil society organizations. But the country needs the leadership from their president. We always want to hear, and we haven't had that. And so I think we need some of that. We need our president to speak to say, look, this is where we want to go. We want our country to be at this place, and we're working hard, that kind of thing. It has more power. Um, Education is very important. If you don't know what to do, then you can't protect yourself.
Hmm.
We've done a lot of education over the years. Like I said, 2 years have been there, so I know when, excuse me, where we started and where we are now. We have done a lot of education over the past 5 or so years. Though the projects have moved us to a place where we go to the ground and do a lot of one-on-one, get into the community because our education was done on TV and radio and during peer education exercises and workshops and that kind of thing. But they wanted us to get into the community, speak to the people one-on-one, understand if they do get the message. Because we might be sending a message, we have a lot of messages out there, but are they really reaching? Are people really understanding? And so during the last 5 years up until now, we've been getting down to the ground and working and ensuring that people understand those messages we've been putting out for all those years. There's still some ignorance when you go into some of the regions of Guyana. You'd be surprised. Here are some of the things. Only last week I was talking to the chairman of the board of Artists and Direct Support. He was in there doing the program, and the things he brought to me was crazy. And he couldn't believe people are saying those things. He even said that mosquitoes can transmit HIV up until this stage. So Education is very important. So we have to keep doing that, going on the ground, especially in those interior regions. Going on the ground, speaking to the people, ensure they understood the message.
What are some challenges you've faced over the years in educating people?
Uh, our first challenge was that people thought that HIV was not theirs, that it was a them people thing and not our thing. And so the first thing we had to do was deal with that. Then it was a black thing, so that Indians were not affected. We have moved from that. We still got some more work to do. And
A
then
black thing?
again,
A black thing, you said?
black people, yes, being as black people get it then. And then because the first case that we found in Ghana was a male homosexual, the gay community got stigmatized, and they said they were responsible for bringing HIV and AIDS in Ghana. And so we had to work to move away from that, and let people understand that most of the passing on of the virus was happening among heterosexual relationships. And so we had those challenges to deal with over the years. I think now um, most of the funding, or greatest challenge for me now, is that most of the funding, and this came from our BSS. We did a behavioral surveillance survey in Ghana, and out of that BSS came that the virus was concentrated with the key affected population, MSM, transgender, and commercial sex workers, loggers and minors to a lesser extent. And so the funding that's coming to Guyana, the external funding, is going to work with those populations. My challenge with that is that, first of all, the community is still facing stigma discrimination. We know that it's against the law in our country, homosexuality, robbery, as well as sex work. And so that is still there. And so whoever wants to use it, this is not to say that because of that that the government is not working with the community. They are, but it's there. If people want to discriminate, they can use it to discriminate if they don't want to give funding. And so they had to face, we had to deal with that stigma and discrimination. And because all this funding is going to the community, we're not addressing the men. It is men who go with men who have sex with men. It is men who go with commercial sex workers, transgenders. So we need to do programs for men generally, because we're not reaching the men who have sex with men who don't show, who don't identify as an MSM. We have a lot of guys who they call the backbencher on the down low or so. And we're not able to reach those men, which are important. There are men, there are husbands, there are partners, there are the fathers of our children. And so for me, the greatest challenge is getting them to understand that we need to do a program for men if we're going to be able to make a change in that community with the key population, because it is our men who go with that.
How how dangerous is it if such a program does not is not implemented dealing with men there?
I think we are going to probably lose some of the work that we did over the years, some of the changes. Commercial sex workers are using more condoms now than they were before.
Hmm.
But when times get rough, commercial sex workers are not very good at bargaining for safe sex. And so if it's the only job tonight and I got those children home to feed, and the client comes and says no condoms, then that's some issue. And
Hmm.
so it'll ensure that our men understand the risks that they can face when they go out there and have extramarital or have multiple partners, then we would not be able to make both sides safe. Because if the commercial sex worker knows what they have to do, and the man, the client who's coming does not know, then we will have that issue. And if you're paying for it, then you have to have your say and not the person who's buying, who's collecting. So for me, that would be a problem for us, because only one side would be safe, which would
Hmm.
be the person who's working there. What about all these men?
And Desiree, any program requires sustainability. How do you plan on sustaining this program?
Well, for us, I can speak for our organization. We have just done our sustainability plan through the PEPFAR program. We had a very beautiful training session with the representative from Johnstone International, JSI, up in the States, and they were able to do a really good sustainability training with us to help us to see where we want to go. Remember, now they didn't tell us what to do. We decided where we wanted to go. For us at Artists in Direct Support, theater is our thing. That's where we started. We started doing HIV education through the arts. And so that's our thing. And we're going to head right back there. We haven't left. We have still done stuff for TV, stuff for radio, stuff for stage, theater at events. We have still done that. with HIV messages, HIV and other social issues. And so we want to go there. We're going to do productions. We have to do more than one. We do one per year now. And so we really have to do more than one. Our challenge with doing production is that at the National Cultural Center, the previous government used to take 36% of our money, of our gross. And so that was a challenge for us because we did not know what 36% would represent until our show is finished. And so we did not fund what our expenses would be. And so that was a great challenge. 19%, 16% went to GRA, and 20% went to the Ministry of Culture. I don't know what they did with the money. I never could get to understand why. We did try to get it taken off, but we were not successful. We're going to try again with this new government. And if they do, they did talk about lowering taxes. And if they do, it's going to be better for everyone. Theater is going to become more vibrant. We are going to be able to do more social issues messages. I want to start a production called "Multiple Story Jump Out." Social issues. If you're going to talk about your issues, then you're not going to get them addressed. And so that's where we want to go. We're going to do other fundraisers. That's where we want to go. We're hoping that we're going to get some support from the government. We have been getting support from the government over the years. It has not been a lot of support. Mainly materials, condoms, testing kits, IC materials, and that kind of thing, but not so much money. So we're hoping that we can get, and we still need to get some external funding if we're going to continue to work with the key affected population. Because remember, it's against the law in Ghana. So we're still going to need some external funding. So we're going to be searching for places where funding is available and see if we can tap into that.
What is your deepest concern about the funding program?
My concern is that we didn't talk sustainability from the inception. Sustainability don't just jump on board. When you're starting a program, you have to start thinking and talking about sustainability. When we started getting funding for those programs, it was easy. It was like we had all this money that they were going to give to us. We're going to do this program, and we just got the money, and it just kept coming every year, paying our utilities, paying our staff, paying us to go out in the field, paying us to reproduce material, paying for sustainability, our computers. And then suddenly, the funding was going down. So I think the problem was not talking about sustainability from the inception. And now when they started talking about sustainability, to me, it sounded more like they want self-sufficiency, where you can become a business. You can, an NGO can become a business overnight. And so when they started, they didn't go there. I think now we're now really getting into the nitty-gritty and in depth what sustainability is all about. And so, but it's right down in the program. It's when they're moving out. You have to talk sustainability when you're moving in, not when you're moving out.
In the chat room, Karen Wharton said, "Thanks, Desiree." Desiree, what kind of constraints do you work under?
One of the founders of Artists in Rex, Keith Andres O'Brien, is the major reason why I work with the key population. I started working, I think I was one of the first NGOs who really started going out in the field and working with the men who have sex with men and sex workers. And so I think Fred was doing some work beforehand. But he was the driving force behind this work. He asked me when he was dying not to forget the community because people from the community were dying. When he died, there were already 4 members of that community who had died. And he asked me to not stop doing what I'm doing. I feel the change in the community. You spend money and you work over the years and you want to see change. I'm not seeing as much as I think I should have seen. And I could be wrong and thinking that the community should have moved faster than they have moved. There has been movement, but there hasn't been enough movement for me. I think the community needs to take a little more responsibility for this program, and I don't see that here. I see people working for money, and that's it. And that's the biggest challenge because I want to see. I had a passion for this work for years, and I've given up my weekends and my Sundays to be with the young people to bring about a change. And I was happy that I saw that change. And I can see those young people all over working in different places in Ghana and still are peer educators, and that really makes me feel good. But I'm seeing more change with sex workers because I see them coming off the street and I build the capacity to come to the world, do catering and that kind of thing. So they're doing different stuff. But the MSM community, I feel that I'm not seeing. I'm not happy with what I'm seeing. And so that's the biggest challenge. And I haven't given it up as yet. I shouldn't say as yet. I haven't given it up. I'm still working because I'm hoping now we're bringing on the community is speaking uh, for us by us. So speaking programs for us by us. And we have done that in the past. But I'm hoping now that they're bringing together, we're having conversations with NGOs who work specifically with this group. I work with other communities as well as that key population. And so now they're bringing on people who can take ownership. It is my hope that I could see a change now. That's my greatest challenge, that I'm not satisfied with the change that I'm seeing.
Desiree, if you could change anything about this program and how it is funded, what would you change?
I would change. I would bring on youth onto the program. I
Mm.
feel that our youth are so important to the future. And I've always had a passion for working with youth because I feel if we're going to go anywhere in the future, I always look into the future. I didn't have a good childhood myself. I was an abused child. And I always look to youth to have a good life, to really make a difference, because they have a lot of talent. And for us to encourage them, embrace them, and help them to bring out those talents and really see it work. And so when I see all the funding coming together and I don't see it going to the youth who got so much potential, I that irks me a little bit. We have spoken about it over the years, and now I see the Global Fund is rethinking it. And so it looks as if we're going to get some funding coming back again because they used to be before to work with youth. And so that's a good thing. But there's always a constant banging. And so the Global Fund is going there. That far has to go. It doesn't look like they're going to go there because they're on their way out and they're not going anywhere near there. The Global Fund hopefully has said that they will rethink it and hopefully we can get that done. But that's my biggest issue.
Desiree, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I go, can I ask you this one question? What gives you hope about this program?
This program helps you to share with others. I think there are a lot of people, especially out of Ghana, who really don't know a lot about what's happening, or really don't know in depth. They might read the newspaper or on the internet, but really to get a real feel of what is happening, I think this program provides that. Get people to understand what is happening, if they need to make a difference, how they can do so. And so for me, that is great. I always enjoy coming on this program. Whenever you ask me, say I'm kicking in right there. I'm there, ready to go. But I think it's a wonderful thing you're doing, Selwyn. I'm really so proud of you, my brother. I always talk about you. So that's my boy, man. That's my boy, Selwyn.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Selwyn.
Thank you, Desiree. Anytime. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
Sure thing. I'll be there for Christmas.
All right. Awesome. Have a good evening.
You too, Selwyn. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
And it says coconut, even coconut, raw coconut, raw bora, raw okra.